Before we begin, tap like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us uncover the darkest corners of the prison system. Now, let's step inside. Every prison controls inmates with walls, bars, and locks. But inside Louisiana State Penitentiary, Angola, control starts somewhere far more ordinary: the food tray. At Angola, meals are not about taste. They're not about comfort. They're not even really about nutrition. They are about routine. Every single day, thousands of men wake up knowing the same thing. You don't choose what you eat. You don't choose when you eat. And you definitely don't choose how long you have to eat. Breakfast comes early, often before sunrise. Lunch arrives when the system decides. Dinner ends the day the same way it began: fast, loud, and unforgiving. Miss the chow line? There is no backup plan. Complain about the food? There is no alternative. At Angola, food is not just fuel. It is timekeeping, discipline, and control wrapped in plastic trays. The portions look small. The menus repeat. And the message is always the same: this is not a place designed for comfort. This is a place designed to remind you, every day, who is in charge. In this documentary, we're pulling back the curtain on what prison food really looks like inside Angola. Not rumors, not exaggerations, but the daily reality of meals served to one of the largest prison populations in America. Because if you want to understand how Angola works, you start with what's on the tray. Feeding a prison the size of the city of Angola, food is not prepared for a small population. It is produced for thousands of men every single day without pause. This prison is not a compact facility. It spans over 18,000 acres, larger than the island of Manhattan. Feeding the population here isn't handled like a cafeteria. It's handled like industrial logistics. Every morning begins the same way. Before most of the outside world wakes up, the kitchens are already active. Lights flick on. Steam rises. Metal carts roll across concrete floors. Everything is timed down to the minute, because when you are feeding thousands, delay becomes disorder. The goal is not quality. The goal is consistency. Meals are designed weeks in advance, locked into rotating menus that rarely change. The reason is simple. Predictability is cheaper, easier to manage, and harder to disrupt. Variety creates complaints. Complaints create attention. And attention is something the prison avoids at all costs. Large-scale suppliers deliver bulk ingredients: rice, beans, grits, flour, powdered mixes, frozen meats. Everything arrives already portioned for mass preparation. Fresh ingredients are limited. Seasoning is minimal. Flavor is not a priority. Inside the kitchens, the work is done almost entirely by inmates. They arrive early, wearing issued uniforms, supervised closely. Some have worked these kitchens for years. Others are new, still learning the pace. The tasks are repetitive: stirring vats, loading trays, scrubbing equipment, hauling containers that weigh more than most people expect. This labor keeps the system running, and it costs the prison almost nothing. Cooking for thousands requires efficiency over care. Food is prepared in enormous batches, often hours before it's served. Once cooked, it sits under heat lamps or in warming units until distribution begins. By the time it reaches the chow hall, temperature and texture are secondary concerns. The trays are standardized. Portions are measured, not generous. Every scoop is intentional, not because the prison wants to starve inmates, but because excess is considered risk. Extra food can be traded. Extra food can be hidden. Extra food can be used as leverage. So the system gives just enough to function and rarely more. Distribution is one of the most controlled moments of the day. When chow is called, movement is fast and loud. Lines form quickly. Inmates are counted. Trays are handed out in seconds. There is no lingering, no substitutions, no second chances. If a meal is missed because of lockdown, work detail, or disciplinary housing, the solution is simple. The meal is gone. There is no guarantee of replacement. The schedule always comes first. Time limits inside the chow hall are strict. Some meals are eaten in less than 10 minutes. Talking is discouraged. Standing up too slowly draws attention. Everything about the process is designed to keep people moving, seated, and compliant. Food here is not meant to bring people together. It is meant to keep the day moving. And this is where the routine becomes powerful. When meals arrive at the same time every day, inmates start to organize their entire lives around them. Sleep, work, showers, recreation. Everything is measured against chow time. Hunger becomes a clock. The tray becomes a signal. This is not accidental. By controlling food, the prison controls pace. By controlling pace, it controls behavior. And by controlling behavior, it maintains order without force. At Angola, the system doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to threaten. The tray shows up. You eat, and the routine continues. What's actually on the tray by the time an inmate sits down to eat at Angola? The meal is already familiar. Not because it looks good, but because it looks the same. Menus at Angola rotate on a tight cycle. Breakfasts blur together. Lunches repeat. Dinners feel interchangeable. Over time, inmates don't ask what's for chow. They already know. A typical breakfast is built for speed and cost. Grits, bread, sometimes a small portion of eggs, or a processed substitute. Powdered drink mix instead of juice. Everything is designed to be filling enough to function, not satisfying enough to enjoy. Lunches and dinners follow the same formula. A starch, a protein, often processed or stretched thin, a side that rarely changes. Rice appears constantly. Beans are a staple. Pasta shows up often. Meat, when served, is usually ground, shaped, or mixed into something else. Texture matters less than volume. Fresh vegetables are rare. Fruit is limited. Seasoning is minimal. Calories are counted carefully, just enough to meet basic requirements on paper. But nutritional balance is another story. Protein is often inconsistent. Fresh fiber is lacking. Vitamins depend heavily on what little produce is available. For inmates who work physical jobs, fields, kitchens, maintenance, hunger doesn't disappear after meal. It just quiets down. And that's intentional. Food at Angola is designed to sustain, not energize. Too much energy creates restlessness. Too little creates medical problems. The system aims for the narrow middle, enough to survive, not enough to thrive. Portion control is strict. Scoops are measured. Slices are counted. No tray leaves a line heavier than allowed. Kitchen workers know this. Supervisors enforce it. A little extra on a tray isn't generosity. It's a violation because extra food changes things. It can be saved. It can be traded. It can be turned into power. So meals stay tight. Taste is secondary. Sometimes non-existent. Meals are often bland by design. Strong flavors can make bad food worse, not better. Salt is limited. Spices are scarce. Complaints are common but pointless. Complaining doesn't change the menu. It only marks you as someone who hasn't accepted reality yet. Over time, inmates develop recognition patterns. They know meals by smell before they see them. They know what day it is by what's on the tray. They know when the cycle is about to repeat. Food becomes a calendar. And when something different appears, even slightly, it causes a reaction. A different meat, a new side, a holiday meal. These moments are rare, and they matter more than the food itself. They remind inmates that variety exists somewhere else. But not here. Eating conditions reinforce the message. Trays are plastic. Utensils are basic. Seating is functional, not comfortable. Meals are eaten quickly, often in silence or controlled noise. There is no atmosphere, no enjoyment, just consumption. For inmates in segregation or lockdown housing, the experience is even more stripped down. Meals arrive through slots, sometimes cold, sometimes delayed, sometimes incomplete. The tray is still the system's message, only louder. Eat what you're given, when you're given it, and move on. This repetition does something subtle over time. It lowers expectations. When every meal feels the same, disappointment stops being emotional and becomes routine. The tray no longer feels personal. It feels procedural. Another step in the day you don't control. And that's the point. At Angola, food isn't meant to punish outright. It's meant to normalize limitation. Because once limitation feels normal, control becomes invisible. When food becomes discipline at Angola, punishment doesn't always come with isolation cells or written charges. Sometimes it comes quietly through the absence of food. Meals are tied directly to compliance, not officially, not on paper. But in practice, everyone understands the connection. Chow runs on schedule, not on need. If you're late to the line doesn't wait. If your housing unit is delayed, the trays don't pause. If a lockdown starts before chow, the meal may never arrive. And when it doesn't, there's no appeal process. Missed meals are treated as logistical consequences, not punishments, even when inmates feel the impact the same way. Hunger doesn't care about policy language. It only cares that the tray never showed up. This is especially true during lockdowns. When movement is restricted, food distribution changes instantly. Meals may be served hours late. They may arrive cold. Portions may shrink. In some cases, inmates receive simplified bag meals designed for speed, not sustenance. The system's priority is control, not comfort. In segregation housing, food becomes even more symbolic. Trays slide through slots. There's no dining hall, no social presence, no sense of shared time. Meals arrive alone, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, often without explanation. The uncertainty itself becomes part of the discipline. Not knowing when food is coming makes time stretch. Hunger fills the gaps. And unlike other punishments, this one doesn't require confrontation. No officer has to raise their voice. No report has to be written. No rule has to be cited. The system simply continues without you. Food timing is also used to manage behavior indirectly. Work details that run long can cause missed meals. Medical appointments can overlap chow. Count times can interrupt service. The message is subtle but consistent. Your needs are secondary to the schedule. Inmates learn quickly to prioritize meals over everything else. Recreation can wait. Conversations can end. Personal matters are paused. Chow becomes non-negotiable because the cost of missing it is immediate and physical. Over time, hunger changes how people think. It shortens patience. It sharpens attention. It makes small privileges feel larger than they are. And this is where discipline becomes internalized. The prison doesn't need to threaten food. It just needs to control access to it. When inmates know meals can disappear without warning, compliance increases. Movement becomes faster. Arguments quiet down. Resistance feels less worth the effort when energy is low. This isn't accidental. It's behavioral management. Food, at Angola, is not used to break inmates openly. It's used to reshape priorities. The body adapts first. The mind follows. Eventually, hunger becomes background noise, a constant presence that fades but never leaves. Inmates stop expecting fairness around meals. They stop questioning portions. They stop reacting to delays. And when people stop reacting, control becomes effortless. That's the real power of food as discipline. It doesn't look like punishment. It feels like routine. The inmates who cook the meals at Angola, the people preparing the food, are not professional chefs. They are inmates. Every tray that slides across a counter is passed through inmate hands, chopped, stirred, lifted, portioned, and stacked by men serving sentences that often stretch for decades, sometimes for life. Kitchen jobs are among the most sought-after assignments in the prison. Not because the work is easy, it isn't, but because access changes everything. Inmate kitchen workers start earlier than most of the prison population. Their days begin before dawn, when the rest of the compound is still quiet. The work is physically demanding, lifting heavy containers, standing for hours, repeating the same motions day after day. Large industrial pots are filled and stirred. Trays are loaded in rapid succession. Floors are scrubbed. Equipment is cleaned again and again because sanitation failures bring consequences fast. Mistakes are not taken lightly. A missing portion, a contaminated surface, a delay, any of it can trigger discipline, removal from the job, or worse. Kitchen workers operate under constant supervision. Every movement is watched. Every task is timed. And yet, despite the pressure, inmates compete for these positions. Why? Because kitchen work offers rare advantages. First, proximity to food. Even without breaking rules, being near the source matters. Kitchen workers eat earlier. They eat more regularly. They are less likely to miss meals due to lockdown timing or housing delays. That consistency alone is valuable inside a system where meals can disappear without warning. Second, stability. Kitchen assignments are routine-heavy and predictable. In a place where uncertainty dominates daily life, predictability feels like control. Knowing where you'll be, what you'll do, and when your shift ends brings a small sense of order. Third, status. Kitchen workers are visible. They interact with staff more frequently. They are trusted conditionally to handle tools, equipment, and access points others never see. That trust can disappear instantly, but while it exists, it matters. Pay, however, remains minimal. Inmate wages are symbolic at best. The work saves the institution millions, but the compensation barely registers. The value of the job isn't the money, it's the position. And that position comes with risk. Kitchen spaces are tense. Tempers flare. Pressure builds. Working around food doesn't erase hunger, it highlights it. Watching thousands of trays move past while knowing portions are fixed and opportunities are limited creates its own strain. One misstep can turn a coveted assignment into a disciplinary record. Still, the system depends on this labor completely. Without inmate workers, the kitchen stops. Without the kitchen, the prison stops. That dependency gives the prison leverage. Kitchen jobs can be granted. They can be taken away. They can be used to reward compliance or quietly punish defiance. Food production becomes another layer of control, not just over those who eat, but over those who cook. And for the inmate behind the trays, the reality is clear. They don't just serve meals. They serve the system itself. Surviving beyond the tray for many inmates at Angola, the food on the tray is not enough. Not always in calories, but in control. The moment an inmate realizes meals will never improve, a new mindset forms. Adapt or stay hungry. That's where survival beyond the tray begins. The commissary becomes the second food system. Unlike the chow hall, commissary offers choice, limited, expensive, and tightly regulated choice, but choice nonetheless. Ramen noodles, canned meats, snack items, drink mixes. Nothing gourmet, nothing healthy, but it's yours. Access to commissary depends on money. Inmates earn pennies an hour working prison jobs. Families on the outside often fill the gap, sending funds when they can. Those without outside support feel the difference immediately. Hunger becomes stratified. Some inmates supplement meals daily. Others ration for weeks. Food becomes currency. A pack of noodles can be traded. A tuna pouch is value. Coffee becomes leverage. These items circulate quietly, creating an informal economy the prison watches closely but never fully controls. Trading food builds alliances. It also builds tension. Debts form. Expectations follow. One missed payment can escalate fast. Inmates learn to cook with almost nothing. Hot water becomes an ingredient. Plastic bags become cookware. Seasoning packets become prized assets. Simple items are combined, stretched, and shared. These meals aren't about taste. They're about ownership. Preparing something yourself, even under restrictions, restores a sense of agency that the chow hall removes. But improvisation has limits. Rules restrict how much food can be stored. Searches happen. Items disappear. Homemade meals can be confiscated without explanation. The system allows just enough flexibility to reduce unrest, not enough to create independence. Food inequality becomes visible. Those with commissary eat differently. Those without learn to endure. This difference shapes social dynamics. Hunger influences mood, patience, and judgment. Conflicts often trace back to food, directly or indirectly. The tray may be equal, but survival beyond it is not. And yet, even with all the effort, the prison meal remains unavoidable. No matter how much commissary you have, the chow schedule still controls your day. You still line up. You still sit. You still eat what's given. The system allows supplements, not replacements. That's the final layer of control. Angola lets inmates survive beyond the tray, but never escape it. The food system bends just enough to absorb pressure while maintaining dominance. In the end, hunger doesn't disappear. It's managed, and in that management, the prison keeps its grip, quiet, consistent, and absolute. What the tray really tells you at Angola, the food is never just food. It's a signal, a schedule, a reminder. Every tray carries the same message. Your comfort is not part of the design. The meals aren't meant to punish loudly or shock the public. They're meant to normalize control, one routine at a time. From the first scoop in the kitchen to the last bite in the chow hall, food dictates movement, behavior, and time. It teaches inmates when to line up, when to sit, when to rush, and when to accept less without complaint. And that's why prison food matters. Not because of how it tastes, but because of what it represents. Inside Angola, power doesn't need force to stay visible. It shows up 3 times a day on a plastic tray, exactly when it's supposed to. Miss it, and you feel the cost immediately. Follow the routine, and the day moves on. Food becomes the quiet language of authority. The system doesn't ask if you're hungry. It tells you when hunger is allowed. For the outside world, these meals are easy to dismiss. But inside, they shape survival, hierarchy, and mental endurance. They influence who adapts, who struggles, and who learns to live within limits they didn't choose. If you want to understand prison, don't start with the walls or the cells. Start with the tray. Because at Angola, what you eat and how you eat it explains everything. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.